It's the Jack
and Kathy
Show.
Shit Show.
And there we go.
Yeah, how was
okay,
that?
that
Did you like
I
that
think
one?
I think it. Yeah.
Okay.
It's gonna be on 3 or 1.
Okay. On 3 or 1?
Yeah, whichever I decide.
Which means 2.
You have to read his brain.
You know what? This moment sums up my life with him. That.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. We're good. Cheers.
Cheers!
Cheers.
Hello. Thank you for joining
So
us.
glad to have you guys.
Sorry.
Oh,
Babe, you're in charge of introductions.
I'm Jack. You okay there? This happens all the time.
What's awesome?
So we were at a
I think everybody tuning in knows who you are already.
we were at a wedding.
At a wedding.
We were
Just
at
a wedding.
a couple of weeks ago, a month ago already.
Oh my
right?
goodness, yeah, a month
Wow,
ago.
yeah.
Isn't that crazy? And my sister's anniversary, her 25th, was July 25th, almost a month and a day after Alex's. So anyway, we had a wedding a couple of weeks ago or so.
Are you not going to say whose wedding
I'm getting
it
there.
was?
I'm leading.
Okay.
I'm leading.
All right. You guys just keep drinking. It's coming.
Might be a minute. Go ahead.
So interesting.
And
I'm always getting edited. Wait till she starts yelling at me. This is when the podcast gets unreal. So Alex got married in July to Sam, but she made choices. And then along the way, as she was planning the wedding, because she's really detailed and organized, you guys are so serious right now. It's freaking
We're
me
listening
out.
to you tell your story.
Yeah.
I don't want to miss a word.
Along the way, I had been, so Al can hear this now for the first time, because I can talk about her a little bit more, that this is over and she's not going to beat me up leading into it. So months before we met you guys, and I'll introduce who they are in a second, it's a lead-in, I had said, you really should get a wedding coordinator. Dad, I don't need one. I've got this. What does a wedding coordinator do that I can't do? It's a waste of money, and on and on and on and on and on. So finally we start getting closer, and the wedding venue won't allow us to cut the cake. It doesn't cut the cake for you. And the cake company won't cut the cake. So all Alex needs is someone to cut the cake. That was it.
That's it. That's all.
That's all.
I've seen it a long time.
So I want you to understand the whole metamorphosis was Alex like, I just need someone to cut the cake. It's not that big of a deal. And I said, just get a coordinator, because then you don't have to worry about anything, or I'll cut the fucking cake, or we'll have Kathy cut it, or someone else. Mm-hmm. She goes, fine, I'll get a coordinator, but it's just to cut the cake.
That's all. I didn't
And
know
so-
that was all I was supposed to do.
That was all you were supposed to do was
That's
cut the cake.
amazing. Did a little bit more than that, but
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
you did.
It was a big cake.
It was a
Huge
huge cake. Thank you.
cake.
did.
Huge
Yeah.
So anyway, we that's recording over there too, right? Yeah, good. So it was just to cut the cake. That's all she wanted, was someone to cut the cake, because the cake vendor wouldn't. And so I had said, how about a wedding coordinator? And it gets better. So she said, I'm not going to pay for all of this stuff, and I'm not going to have someone going to tell me what to do, and I'm not, and I'm not, and I'm not, and I'm not. And it went down this path. So I call my mother up, and I'm going, I do not know how to get through to my daughter right now, because this is a solid Scorpio wall, and once her mind is made up, we ain't going anywhere. And then all of a sudden she said, fine, I'll look into it. And we sent her a bunch of vendors. So we went online and literally Googled wedding coordinator day of, and names popped up. So from that point on, I don't know what happened. But clearly she got your name. Mm-hmm. And me especially, fell in love with both of you guys. Mm-hmm. Because you made the day.
Oh, he came back after the first meeting with you guys and was like, these are the best people. I can't wait for you to meet Nilsa and Paul.
I mean, over coffee.
Yeah.
So
It was
she
over
just
coffee.
introduced you.
Yeah.
oh yeah,
Well,
I did.
Well,
go
So
ahead.
welcome Nilsa and Paul.
okay. Yes, I'm Paul, people. I am Paul.
Thank you for having us.
You
This is
are
exciting.
wedding coordinators, and
Yes.
you are amazing, and you are so helpful, and you changed the day. So I want you to think about this for a second. From Alex just wanting someone to cut a cake to her calling me going, so anyway, we could have them do the rehearsal dinner. And
Instead, it's just one day. Is 2 okay?
and it's so funny because she knows me, and before I had a chance, I think she knows me sometimes, but other times she doesn't. And this is one of those times where she didn't. So she said, I'll check into cost. I don't think it's going to be too much, but what's the budget for that? And I went, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, no, I know you're just saying that. I went, I don't care. Just hire them. They're fantastic, so hire them. And so from cutting a cake
Hold up.
to
That's
good.
a tree,
Some excitement going on
tree
out there.
service
Yeah.
truck.
Little backfire too.
Yeah,
from
right.
cutting a cake to then wanting you for 2 days, and to completely acquiescing to anything you guys coordinated was fantastic. And so that's really a compliment to you guys,
Thank you.
Thank you.
because she's
How good you are
Yes.
at your job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
because she
Yeah.
wasn't going to relinquish anything, and for her to do that was
She
amazing.
did, and I think she was able to just step back and enjoy the day.
Yeah.
I think it was our
Yeah.
honor to be a part
Yeah.
of it and
Yeah.
to get to know you guys and to get to know
I
them.
know.
Like, it's so
and now
exciting.
here you are in
I
your
know.
kitchen.
Yeah.
That's right.
So we
Funny
told her we're
that.
having Paul and Nilsa be part of the podcast. She's like, "Get the fuck out of here!" And when we met him, that's how we met him at Bayshore.
Bayview.
Bayview.
Yeah.
Bayshore, not Bayshore.
Bayshore is the
Oh, the
mall.
mall.
Yep.
Bayview
Oh, yeah.
Farmers Market.
Yeah.
Yep.
And she's like, "So you're now besties or something, huh?"
Yeah.
We just occasionally run into each other, random places. I mean, you know.
So this is a relationship podcast, okay? And we have 3 series of questions. One is, what don't you like about your partner? That's the first question we ask.
Oh
The
boy.
second is, what
It's
would you like
not.
your partner to improve on? And the third was, who would you rather have as your partner? So that's how we start every show.
Wow.
And do you have a
None of-
divorce attorney now?
We actually had
We did.
one of our guests was a mediator, divorce
Oh, that's
mediator.
so
Swear to
funny.
God.
Yeah.
We also do those kinds of parties if people need it. I mean,
Party.
it's event.
All parties.
It's weddings and
This is
events.
one
Yes.
big-
So-
Weddings and events. Yes.
You know, I'm a
Paul's
full
gonna-
service wedding planner, but I
Yeah.
also do other events as well.
I love that.
Paul is going to turn this into a pitch video and audio.
As
No,
it should
no,
be.
no.
Right, you should.
Shameless plugs. Nope, not at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if anybody needs, no.
This is so. Do you know the evolution of how the purpose or start of this podcast at all? Have you
No,
heard it?
share with us,
your
please.
story.
Yeah.
Well, when Jack and I met, I think we shared the how we met story with you guys and how we immediately, our first date, talking for 6.5 hours, which I'm sure you can imagine is difficult because Jack is so quiet. And not. But yeah, we just talk nonstop and we go deep into topics. And one day early on in our relationship, I'm like, gosh, we sound like we have a podcast or something. And he's like, oh, I can make that happen. Because he had the majority of this equipment already and the mix, whatever this mixing stuff is. And so he set it up and we just went from there and we just started talking and haven't stopped talking. Because it's very interesting, and I know you guys have an interesting story as well, but very interesting to be blending your lives together at 57 years old, 55 when we met, and his 3 kids and my 2 kids, and he moved to Milwaukee, and there's a lot to navigate. There's logistic stuff to navigate. There's emotional stuff to navigate, and
Absolutely.
a lot of growth on both our parts. So that's kind of the origin of this podcast.
And the purpose of it, we first started talking about. So let me back up. My sister would always say, I need to be with someone who lets me hang in the shallows and then goes to the deep end of the pool. Because she says, you're up here and then you're down here. And you're up and down all the time. And you need someone that can navigate that with you. So when I met Kathy, we're having similar types of conversations, right? And that's what prompted her to say, let's do this podcast. And so I said, well, what are we going to talk about though? Just right. Because I don't feel qualified to give advice about relationships. Right. And you certainly didn't either.
No, we're
And so we said, well, what if
grossly
we just
unqualified. To
what
do
if we
that.
just told our stories and all the things we're dealing with in our relationship? So as the kids meet for the first time, or as Alex's wedding comes up, we're going to talk about all the things that we've experienced. And not so much that everyone gets a chance to know us, but maybe we'll say if they're looking for someone at this age, they talk this way. And so we've had single people on, our age who now listen to us and go, I paid attention to what you said there and I did that on a date. So like the things that so that's the whole purpose, is to share our life.
Yeah.
And if someone gleans something from that, awesome. This isn't an advice column, right? And so one of our friends said you need more guests on the show because apparently she was bored with listening to us talk.
As she is so far right now, listening to just us talk.
She is. And so, and we'll get there, right? Am I taking too long? Yeah. Message received. So that's a fire department thing. Remember that message received?
Message received.
So, so we decided to have more guests on, and we truly did have a divorce mediator on to talk about that. And a lot of people loved the episode because of whatever stage of life they're in. So I told you, I think the moment I met you, to kind of screen you for the...
It was an interview.
It really was.
Yeah.
I told Al, I'm like, if I don't like them, we ain't using them. It's that simple. And then I think I told you you're going to be on our podcast. So this is months before the wedding.
We thought you were
ends.
joking.
Back then it was a
But
threat.
here we are.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us. So that's
Yeah.
us. That's the story.
Yeah.
10 minutes in, and then we stop talking. We can go through the 3 questions again if we want to.
Stop it. Stop it. No, but honestly,
things that Paul could do better. Go.
Things that could do better. You're so funny.
The list
We
is long.
always
My
say-
list for myself that I could do better is long.
Right.
We always say we're perfectly imperfect for each other.
Exactly.
So
Right.
I'm imperfect, he's imperfect, but we're perfectly imperfect for each other.
Yes.
So our imperfections are what makes us who we are.
Yeah.
And we navigate those, we deal with it together, but it works for us.
So I was fascinated by your story, and the reason I wanted you on is because you had come from previous relationships, you were blending families, you have a diverse background. That was all very appealing to me. And in fact, Kathy's not kidding. I came home, I'm like, God, I love these two. So can you share your story, however...
Yeah.
How far
Deep
back
in-
would you like to go? Like 1976?
Yes, I love it.
I mean,
I
like,
wasn't alive then.
I
Yeah,
do
I'm
want you
looking
to
forward
talk
time,
about the tattoo that has your name on it.
oh, geez. We could talk about it. We could talk about whatever you wish. Yes.
No, go ahead. Tell us we would
So
love to hear
I
your
can
story.
talk about, I could start with me. And I was a young 21-year-old single mom with 2 little boys. So I'd gotten married really young.
Yep.
Probably shouldn't have done it, but it
Yeah.
did because,
Yeah.
I was young and dumb.
Seemed right at the
Yep.
time.
And
we
I got
think
my-
we're so smart.
Right. Yeah. I got my 2 boys out of it, and which was the best thing. And so I remember thinking to myself, like, who is ever going to date me at 21 with 2 boys?
That guy right there.
And it's funny because I hadn't anticipated dating. I thought like I just needed to focus on my life and my kids and be a mom. And I had met Paul through a neighbor. And I completely blew him off. Like I wanted nothing to do with him.
It was a name tattoo on my stomach.
Yeah, right.
Especially when you had to look down and remind yourself who you were.
Yep. Exactly. Exactly.
And it was just very interesting how later, well, I'll let you tell that part when you saw me. But anyway,
I can't wait to tell it. Our versions are different.
Right.
Yeah,
Our
I'm
versions
sure.
are different. So I met him. I wasn't even sure that I wanted to be in a relationship. And not only did Paul want to be in a relationship, he wanted to be he knew right away what he wanted.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. He proposed to me 4 months into our relationship. I'm like, you're absolutely crazy. And let me just back up. My 2 little boys.
Yeah.
At the time, we're just turning 4. Tom and Jeremiah was going to be 6.
They were 3 and 5. They were
3 and 5,
Yeah,
turning
okay.
4 and 6
Yeah.
that summer.
Yeah.
They were really little.
Yeah.
And they were very rambunctious.
Yes.
That's a good word. They were
Yes.
a little naughty.
Yeah.
They were amazing. But they were not everybody's cup of tea.
Sure.
I would go places and people would like, whose kids are those? I'm like, sorry, they're mine. And I, being a young mom, I just poured everything into them.
Yeah.
And it's so funny.
Of course.
I used to worry, like, either they're going to be criminals or they're going to be okay.
Yeah,
And I'm happy to say
They're in the okay
They're
category.
really good, doing really
amazing.
good for
They're
themselves.
amazing
Yes.
young men. So I
Yes,
just,
yes.
but anyway, so when I met Paul, he pursued me and I was kind of put off. I was not interested. And he continued to pursue me. We met up for breakfast once in an evening after he was on his bowling league. And I was like, oh, well, I don't know. And he pursued.
It was breakfast at like 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
We found a 24-hour spot.
Yes, of course.
So-
I just met him at the diner.
Oh, is that cool?
Yeah.
And he walked me to my car and gave me a hug. He was very respectful.
Yeah.
And I walked away like, not very sure. And then he continued to reach out to me. And it was like,
there was a lot of texting because texting was big back then.
And it was the whole,
Yes,
we would
course.
correspond a lot. And then he really wanted to spend time with my kids, which I thought he was crazy.
Yeah.
I have 2 little boys, and I don't think it's fair that you want to meet my kids when I'm
so soon.
So soon. And that's and then I'm introducing him to people. And then his words were, well, how in the heck am I going to want to date you if I never get to meet them? Right?
Yeah.
Like,
Good point.
Because if they didn't,
Good point.
if they didn't like me or get along with me, why would I want to pursue something with their mom and potentially getting into something bigger?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
And I was not thinking
two,
bigger.
Two little kids
Yeah.
resent me for who knows how long.
I
a year,
get
2 years,
that because that's
18 years.
Yeah.
That's
you
an
know.
investment of emotion and time and
And like she said, I was in a different place. I was looking for that. I was looking
Yeah.
for
I mean,
a wife.
to put it in
and
perspective,
kids
like
and-
our
and
age
stuff.
gap.
Yeah.
So I was 21 and you were 28.
28, yes.
So he was in a different place in his
Mm-hmm.
life.
Exactly.
But I was in the place of, I was not a typical 21-year-old because I was a mom.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I had just started at the height of my career, just gotten my first big girl job.
Yeah.
And I was focused on that. And he came in and he swooped in and
I was the big stick in that wheel. I made her world stop.
well, and it's funny because he knew what he wanted, but he stepped in, and initially I didn't know how this was going to look like. Well, what does this look like with me, with kids? And he just stepped in, and he was a parent.
Yes.
He wasn't
Your
like,
instincts were there. That was your
At
nature.
that point in time, I didn't have any children of my own.
Right.
Yeah, he had never been
So,
married, never had
never
children.
Married, no children.
So it was very interesting what we brought to the table, and it was very natural. The boys were small enough where, and there was not a father in the picture, so he stepped into that role, and the boys just like him and the boys. To this day, sometimes I think they like him more than me.
They took you right away.
I stayed in her life and making a lot of plans with the boys.
Yeah.
I used to, she always says, I would play softball.
Yeah.
With work and then I would do darts and stuff like that. But
He's a bachelor.
I would have her and the boys come and watch me play softball or whatever.
Yeah.
And then we would hang out, go get dinner or whatever afterwards. And then one of the boys, I forget which one, would say, "Can Paul come over tomorrow?"
And I would say, "No, he's busy."
Oh,
Yeah.
and I'll be
my
like,
God.
and I'm like, yeah, I'm busy coming over by you because I'm not busy at all. And she's like, she was trying to get away from me, but I was
You
like,
were trying to push him away.
It wasn't that. I was
No, she
scared.
was-
I
she
was
was
scared.
scared.
I
She
didn't
was,
know.
yeah.
And I didn't know
Yeah.
what I was getting myself into. I had just, come out of a really terrible situation. And
That you
You
felt you had rushed into and not paid a close enough attention
Correct.
to what this was going
Yeah.
to be like and who this person was.
Right.
Like you
And-
probably ignored some red flags.
oh, big time.
Yeah.
Big time. And it was a scary thing. And Paul was amazing through the whole thing, though. He was, looking back, I think about it and I'm like, who in the right mind? These my boys were such a handful.
Yeah.
They were so much to handle.
So cool.
Well, who, just to think that,
I think our first family date, we'll call it,
Yeah.
was to the zoo.
yeah,
Yeah.
And
which was our second date.
our second total
Oh,
date.
wow.
But it was a,
Oh,
Because
you
like I
had
said, I
kids
wanted to.
right away.
I'm like, well, yes, because
Yeah, why not?
if it wasn't going to work out with the
Good
kids,
call.
then there was no sense
Right.
of pursuing
I'll keep moving.
anything
I'll
more
keep
than
moving
just a
on.
friendship, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Out of all of it. And so we're at the zoo, and we're sticking around pretty good. And I forget we're probably going to look at the sea lions or something where you could look it through the wall and see them underwater, whatever. And Tom Jeremiah picked up like a little piece of mulch or something that was laying on the ground. And I says, "Can you put that down, please?" What's he do? He flings it over his shoulder, and some guy's walking behind, lands right on this guy's shirt.
Oh gosh.
And I'm like, I turn around, I'm like, "I'm so sorry." He's like, "It's all good." And she's like, "You think you're not mad?" I'm like, "How can I can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do I do? I don't know him well enough to say,
Yes.
I'm not going to
yes.
get down on him or anything like that.
Yeah.
So all I can do is just try and teach him, hey, you shouldn't Throw
Right.
it down,
He
throw it
talked to
down,
him-
not throw it back.
He talked to him so gently. It was really sweet.
Yeah.
He just said, "Hey, buddy, you don't want to throw things. You can hurt somebody." And he said something so just very nonchalant.
Yeah.
And my son's like, "Oh, sorry, Paul," or something to that.
Oh,
like just
wow.
like,
Like he responded well
Yeah,
to it.
and
You
I'm
probably had never
"You're right." And I'm
heard-
like, "What in the world just
Yeah.
happened here?
Right,
What,
right.
What just happened?"
Yeah.
And then the date pursued where it was Paul was off with the kids, and I'm like, "This is supposed to be a date."
Yeah.
I'm left by myself.
But what a beautiful thing.
It was.
You know, because
it was very interesting. I didn't know what was happening.
Yeah.
But I knew something was happening.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I knew that, and that it was that day at the zoo, that Saturday, that my son Jeremiah, he said, "Mom, what's Paul doing tomorrow?" And I said, "Paul's busy tomorrow." That was another.
Yeah.
And nope, I'm not.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
I guess we're having dinner at our house.
Yeah, it sounds like it was a slow build of trust,
Yeah,
really for you.
absolutely.
And
Oh, sure.
would that be accurate to say that almost had to come first before the emotions of love and like you had to trust that this was the real thing and that this person would be a positive addition to your family,
And I think that it was endearing to her to see
Yeah.
somebody else interact with her children,
Right.
in a way that she thought, "Wow, this is this could be something."
Right. Right.
Not like I wasn't irritated by them. I mean, that came later.
Yeah.
Obviously, because when you start living,
still irritate me.
I mean, yeah, they're in their 20s and they still irritate once in a while. But
Fair enough.
I mean, just the interactions that we had were always so pleasant. I think the month after we officially started dating, Tom turned 4, and so we did a little. It wasn't a huge birthday party, but just a little something.
I mean, it was just cake.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
just cake.
Yeah.
And stuff like that, and then.
It was learning about each other and me having to be open to that. I was kind of closed off in the beginning.
Yeah, I bet.
She was very hesitant on
I'm sure you were
Yeah, and-
protecting
and it's like-
yourself,
Well, and
with what you
also-
had
and
gone
I
through.
can totally respect that.
Yeah.
I'm glad I broke down that wall though.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just for me. It wasn't the norm. I have when you come from some dysfunction or people that are. You're hesitant and like, what's the ulterior motive here? Or
Right.
What's
For sure.
Where's
Right.
the catch? Or why
Right.
Yeah.
you're being nice now, but eventually.
Yes.
So I
you had to know you could trust it.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it was one of those things. Even when we dated a short time, we had only dated for 4 months, and he proposed to me. I'm like, "You're absolutely crazy. This
Yeah.
is insane.
Yeah.
We've been dating for 4 months. We don't even know each other." And he's like, "But I know what I want, and I know I love the boys, and I know I love you." And my response was, "Okay, but can we be engaged for a year?" Because I was still scared.
Yes.
Yeah. Sure.
I
Yeah.
knew that it felt right, but it was still scary.
Yes,
And everybody,
yes.
literally everybody told me, "You're insane, Nilsa. This
Yes.
is nuts. Like this is setting yourself up for disaster."
Wow.
Yes,
But had all
everybody.
those people met him?
Yes, everybody
Okay.
had met
And
him.
they still went, "We like him, he's nice, but Jesus,
do you
Because
know-
the time was such a short time.
Yes.
frame
Well, and
that-
yeah, my mother
And-
tells the story that when she met Paul, she cried for 3 days. She cried for 3 days. She's like, "He's old and he has tattoos." I'm like, "He's not old. He's 28.
But
That's not
that's
old.
also
That's
right.
7
and
years
he's
older
this
than
and
you.
that."
And I had multiple piercings.
Yeah, and I'm
stuff
like, "Mom,
that.
he's a nice guy."
Yeah.
But my mom was just like, it was just funny to think about that.
Yeah.
And I don't know, looking back, I didn't even, it just was a natural progression. It happened organically.
Yes. Yes.
And like I said, I was scared. And even when we were planning our wedding, I'm like, are we really doing this?
Yeah.
We're really doing this. And we're married 18 years this year.
This
I
year?
love it.
We'll be together
Almost 20.
in April. It'll be 20.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, it's
That's
just
fantastic.
But it was, the blending of the family. So then we had my boys, who then became his boys, our boys. He adopted them, and so everybody, we're all Tremaines. We're all,
Yeah. Yeah.
They were small enough where my younger of the two boys literally has no memory before his father, all in his life.
Right.
So Tommy doesn't even remember before.
Wow.
And Jeremiah just remembers little things. But, he's there through and through. Like, he's been
Yeah.
there forever,
Yeah.
as far as
Yeah.
they're concerned. And we we have 6 children.
Yeah.
Total,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
6 children. When I met Paul, I said, I don't know that I want any more kids.
Yeah. Whoops.
And again, Paul was like, well, that's not, he's like really sure about what he wants. When Paul wants something, he knows what he wants.
Oh my God,
Does
is
that
so
give
good.
you confidence though? Does that like you feel?
Yeah.
It-
I trust him.
Yes.
And, you know, he wanted more kids. I was very hesitant, and my boys were a little bit older. I thought, like, I have kids in school full time.
Yeah.
I'm full blown into my career.
Yes.
And you want me to have a baby.
Yeah.
You want
Yeah.
me to start over.
Yeah.
So we did decide that we did want one.
And you still were only in your 20s. So
yeah, I was in my 20s.
You know, age-wise,
Yeah,
when you're looking at the math, the
Yep.
math still worked.
Yep.
Right?
So we had one, and it took us a little while. It took us a couple years to get pregnant with her. Took us a while. And he said, I think I want one more. I'm like, we can't. It took us a couple years to get pregnant with that last one.
Yeah.
And our other kids are like, 8 and 10 now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now we have like big boys,
Yeah.
a newborn baby. I can't have like a 3-year-old and teenagers and then having another newborn baby. I can't keep starting over. So we decided to speed up the process, and because the first time around we didn't do fertility, but it took us a really long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we waited a year and we still didn't get pregnant. So we did fertility. Ended up with Daniel, our second one.
Yeah.
And then we were really done. We
But
thought.
you
You
weren't.
thought, which more?
We keep thinking we're done.
Yeah.
So I never say I'm done anymore, because every time I say that,
Never
joke's
say
on me.
never.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Stork flies up to the
Yeah,
house.
but so we ended up having one surprise baby at the end, and then something that Paul always expressed was a desire to do foster care. So when our youngest, I think Abby was 2, or maybe
Ish.
maybe 18 months,
Yeah.
we decided to do foster care, just foster care.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
What is just foster care?
Versus
So-
adoption.
Yeah. So in Milwaukee County, where we live, there's a couple different tracks you can take. So as foster parents, there's like a specific set of criteria, and it's pretty simple. The background check, they make sure there's room, they make sure that you're good people, whatever. For adoption, there's like 3 times the amount of criteria.
Right.
And even though you're a foster parent, doesn't necessarily mean you can qualify for adoption.
Sure.
So there's different guidelines and things. So we were just foster parents. And I say that because we
Here we go again.
yeah, right. We had our first foster child, and he moved on. He was with us for about 6 months. And
How
we-
old was he?
He was 13.
13.
Okay.
He was 12 when he came to us. He spent his 13th birthday with us.
Yes.
Okay.
And he moved on after 6 months, and then we got our second foster child.
Okay.
And she was an 11-year-old girl. She was incredible.
Yeah.
She was with us for about 4 or 5 months. And one day she said, "Hey, Inez," that's what she called me. "Hey, Inez, do you think that you and Paul can adopt me?"
Wow.
And I just looked at her and I'm like, "Well, I don't know, honey, but we'll try. We can talk to the social worker. I don't know what that looks like." And I knew at this point, like I said, we were foster parents.
Yes.
But that's all the further. We never
Well,
even.
when that beautiful soul looks you in the eye and says, "Will you please adopt me?"
Yeah. And
I
we
can't
did have,
imagine.
Yeah. We had a natural, like all of us, like there was just, we all fit together really well. And so that part, long story short, it took us a few years to adopt her. She was 14 when the adoption
Okay.
was final.
But she was able to stay with you.
She
that
stayed with us the whole
It's
time.
not like, so it was just background paperwork
It's
and
not for us on our
wheels
end.
turning, but
On our end, like our stuff was done within pretty quickly, but there was there's like court cases and things like that.
Yeah.
There was a criminal trial with one of her
From
parents.
previous.
There's-
yeah.
And so
Got
until all those things
Were
are
resolved.
you can't
yeah, you can't.
follow through with it.
Yeah.
So we were adoption bound,
Okay.
but at that point, because we were moving forward with the adoption, we had been approved to adopt her, and we really, the reason why I said to her, and looking back, I don't even know why I answered her the way I did. I don't know is what my response to her was. It's because we already had 5 children. And I didn't know the criteria. I didn't know what that looked like.
Right.
I didn't know if they'd tell us, hey guys, you have 5 kids already, bringing a 6th one in.
Right.
Like I honestly didn't know.
We had no idea.
We had no
Yeah.
idea. But so we have this family, this dynamic. I have 5 children that I gave birth to. Paul has 3 children that he adopted, 2 of which are mine biologically, one of them that we adopted together.
Yes.
So
yes.
our family dynamic is definitely unique.
Right.
This is what prompted me to want the podcast, because you
Okay.
guys had told me this story.
Yeah.
Did you hear? This is the first one for you, right? And the
You
detail. I
you
gave
came
you-
home. You came home with all the detail, and
did,
so
okay.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
and
For the 7 listeners that we have, this is what made me want to have you guys on the podcast, because I think you're fascinating. I think it's am I getting too sappy?
no,
I just think it's a wonderful expression of love. You guys are amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
and a wonderful. I mean, families can look so different these days, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, and so yes, you are a representation of how love binds you all together, and created a family that looks different than you made it look your own. And it's a beautiful thing. I love that story. And I do want to hear your version of how you met, though, Paul, because you said
it's still there,
your
'cause you said it's a
version
little bit
reminder every
is
once in a while
different.
too. So,
I wasn't there for his one.
But our daughter that we adopted,
Yeah.
she's our daughter, is. Sorry, I might get a little emotional.
Oh, don't do that.
Deep breath, Paul. Okay, she's doing so well.
Yeah,
She's going to be a junior in college,
yeah,
full ride.
amazing.
Couldn't be prouder of her.
Yeah.
And
She's a good kid. She'll be 21 in January, and
and it's funny because we're like, what do you want to do? What do you want to do on your birthday for your 21st? I want to go to Vegas.
we booked her.
We bought Vegas. We're going to Vegas.
So we're taking her to Vegas.
Let's go to Vegas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's
random.
Yeah.
It is.
incredible.
Well, we're actually we're leaving on Tuesday to Punta Cana.
Yes.
And
Yes.
we're taking the kids.
Right.
Yes.
And it's the first time they've ever been out of the country. Well,
Oh.
they've been to Puerto Rico. Technically,
Yeah,
it's like disconnected America.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah.
passports, all that stuff, and they're so excited to go. And
That's so great.
our daughter, she's so excited because the legal drinking age is 18 in the Dominican. So she's like, I'm in, and
Yeah.
I'm like,
Amazing.
okay, I can't say you're legal there.
So
Yeah.
you're going
Yeah.
to Vegas when then?
In
In
January.
January.
But not until
Okay.
January.
Well,
okay.
her birth, she has the best birthday. I can never forget it, even if I have Alzheimer's. It's 01 of 02 or 01/02 of 03.
Oh my
Oh
God.
God.
And
That's
so,
great.
And so we tried to book like the weekend before, but it's New Year's,
New Year's,
very
for sure.
very expensive out there.
Yeah.
So we're going the following weekend.
Okay.
Which
Yeah,
is
we're
like
the
3 days late, but
5th.
still.
Is she
Yeah.
going with you then?
Oh, yeah, it's for her-
okay.
it's
No,
for her.
no,
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 I
Jack,
didn't know-
no, Jack. We're gonna celebrate her birthday by ourselves.
No, I didn't know if she was going like with friends.
No, no.
So like
No, no.
saying, I
We'll
want to
give
go
her
to
a
Vegas
call,
without
we'll
you.
give her a
Yeah,
call
no, no,
and
no,
But
say
she
happy
wants you
birthday.
there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
See
Yeah.
how cool that is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're super excited. We're gonna take her around and do all the fun stuff, and
Oh my
it'll
God,
be
that's
it'll
great.
be good. So
That's cool.
amazing.
Yep.
That's
she's a-
amazing.
All right, so what's your story?
Okay, so like she had mentioned before that we met through a mutual friend, and this friend lived below her in the apartment building. She lived upstairs, and my friend lived downstairs. And one day I'm sitting there, I'm sitting on the couch, and the sliding glass doors of all the apartments have them with the blinds that go up and down, and the blinds were open, and she comes home from work and she pulls into the parking spot, which happens to be directly in front of my friend's patio, and she got out. And my friend is over here in the room, and I go, who is that? And they
You
came
were
over
just
and,
struck.
Yeah, just came over and says, oh, that's
Yeah.
Nilsa. She lives upstairs. I'm like, she's gonna be my wife.
he spoke it into existence.
I did.
Right. Wow.
I totally did.
What made
I
you
totally
so
did.
clear? Like,
I
was
don't
it just
know.
a feeling? It
I
just
don't-
came
I
over
don't
you?
know.
Like,
He
it was
hasn't
just a
even met me
vision?
yet. He just
I-
literally just
like I never heard her voice or anything. She could have sold
It'd
it.
be great if she talked like this.
Hi, Paul. My name is Nilsa.
It would have been great. You know,
Had bad gas.
I could have been a weirdo. I mean, maybe I am a weirdo.
I mean, there could have been some weird ticks going on. I don't know. But I mean,
so
it just,
funny.
I don't know. It just in that moment, something hit me and it just said,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
this
So
is what it's
when,
going to be.
yeah, when our friend Jen, who tells that story, like he literally said, I'm going to marry her.
That's going to be my wife.
Crazy.
I just think it's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Wow.
and I had
So-
no idea that happened.
Right, of
But when I
course
met
not.
Paul, I'm like, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
And he's
And so-
thinking like, this is going to be my wife.
Right.
Yes,
And so-
right.
She's
right.
gonna be
Polar
interested.
opposites.
And so I would hang out with this friend, and then we would run into each other if you weren't working or whatever. And back in the day, I was going to a Marilyn Manson concert,
Oh,
and I had hair.
You're going to tell this story?
No, I'm just parts of it. I had hair.
Oh no, I want to hear. Now that there's more, I want the whole thing.
So
go to Marilyn
I wanted
Manson.
to dye my hair, and my friend wouldn't do it. So she goes, "Oh, Nilsa will probably do it." So Nilsa came down and dyed my hair.
You're not dating.
She
Are
literally
you
called
dating at this
me.
point?
what color?
No, I didn't
Jet
even
black.
know him.
Jet black.
Jet black. I had black fingernails. Jet
Was
black.
your homage to Marilyn?
I was
Manson?
going to Marilyn Manson.
Again,
so,
my
Yeah.
mother cried for 3 days when
Yeah.
she met him.
Right.
So,
That's
yeah,
fantastic.
I like surprising people. You know.
Yeah.
Clearly.
It's just one day I'm gonna show up with something.
So wait,
It's just
so
gonna be
you knew
different.
you were going to marry her, but you hadn't formally met her, and you convinced her to come down and dye your hair.
Yeah, so
Yes.
our friend called and said, hey, I know you've dyed hair before. Can you dye my friend's hair? My friend Paul. Remember Paul? I'm like, what do you mean? Well, he's down here in my kitchen. He just needs help with getting his hair dyed. Oh, okay. It's kind of
And
random.
you knew
So-
the whole
I
time.
say
But
it was
I,
random.
I feel like
mean-
it was a setup. Like she kind of did it
Yes.
I think that was
intentionally.
on her part. Yes.
And I kind of was a little bit like, well, read the box.
yeah, right.
Like it's hair dye.
I mean,
right.
Right, it's not complicated.
I
it
mean,
doesn't work.
yeah, right.
so yeah, I came down to dye his hair, and he's sitting in a chair in the middle of our kitchen. I'm like, well, you need a towel. We're
Yeah.
gonna make a mess. It's
Yeah.
black hair dye.
Yeah.
And so it's so in ensuing moments we were laughing and giggling and stuff like that. Just and then I go to look at she goes, okay, we're all done. I go look in the mirror and son of a bitch, I tell you, I had black. My ears were black. My everywhere. I'm like, how do
He
you?
didn't sit still.
I'm like, how do you get this off of you? Because and I'm sitting there, I'm
In
trying
about
to.
3 days, it'll just wear
I
off.
told him sit
Right.
still. He didn't listen.
Right.
Where you go, Nilsa?
Yeah, so I think she did that a little bit on purpose. See, look at the face. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh great, I can't go anywhere looking like this. And I'm like, I gotta work tomorrow.
But he
and
never
I
told
gotta
me that.
be-
He was like, thanks, it looks great.
Yeah,
I'm like,
I'm not
oh
gonna
my
be mean because I
God.
wanted you to be like.
and again, we had never even been on a date, and I didn't even know that there was the like he had a
The
like,
marriage proposal.
Yeah.
He already
Yeah.
proposed in
yeah,
his head.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
that I did. That I didn't do. That I came up pretty quickly too.
But yeah, that I didn't even know that he like had a crush or anything. Like I
Yeah,
just came
yeah.
over because my friend asked me,
Right.
can you dye my friend's hair?
Right,
Can you come
right.
downstairs? And and so that was kind of interesting. So
That's
it was
amazing.
a setup. I think they planned and
That's
planned that on
amazing.
purpose.
and that's my story.
That
There's
wow,
more to it.
There's got to be more.
There's
to it.
another layer
of
you're
how,
leaving
how
out.
we met.
Yeah.
Saying that
There's
she
not
could be my
another
wife
layer to this
all that.
particular story.
Well, no, well that's when we started texting. And stuff like that.
Oh, no, I feel you're
back
leaving
then,
something
texting
out.
wasn't like it is now, where you could actual
Her
keyboard.
face is saying
It's
you
like-
left something out.
No,
What
it's
did you
just
leave out?
so
What did I leave out?
he says when he tells the story, normally he'll say, and you were flirting with me? I'm
Oh, I
like,
always do.
I was not. I absolutely was not.
We
and
were
he's
laughing
like,
and giggling.
Oh,
That was
you
flirting.
were. And he's like,
That was hardcore flirting. That was.
okay, well, that's what he says. And I don't remember. Again,
We were
I don't
enjoying each other's company.
Yes.
See, but, and
yeah.
then again, I wasn't looking at it
Yeah.
anyway, so I don't remember that.
Yeah.
But he says we had a good time. I remember dyeing his hair, and I remember it making
Yeah.
a big mess.
That's hilarious.
And then, as the texting I was talking about was when you had the 3 letters per key, so it took
Oh,
forever to
yeah.
write out a text message.
Yeah.
And if you messed up, that was so bad.
You're dating
Yeah.
us really, like you're making us seem really old right now.
Yeah.
I mean, it was back in
you're
the day,
dating-
early
yeah.
2000s, early
Exactly.
2000s.
Exactly
Exactly.
what
The
it
fact
was.
there was even
So-
texting.
Right.
Yeah.
One, 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And-
And you got so good that you wouldn't even have to look. You just
Yeah.
knew.
But you know what? I'm such a slow texter. She would ask me a question, but then she would text me like 5 other things, and by the time I answered the first question, I was out of the conversation.
It's still that way today.
It's still that way.
I,
It's still that way.
you know, it's funny because our oldest sons will say, "Stop spamming me." And I'm like, "What's spamming?" Mom, when you send 5 text messages in a row. And I'm like, well, it's like question 1, and this. And I just hit send.
it's as you're
Mom,
thinking of it.
put your full idea together before you hit send. I'm like, okay. So apparently that's,
Well,
I
now
spam
what you
people.
can do with texting is you can
reply to
reply to
those
just
threads,
the one text. Like you
Yes.
hold it and your reply is attached to that first
I
question.
know, isn't that
So
nice?
someone was
I'm just learning that now. So
someone was thinking of you guys, or at least of Nilsa.
How do we handle the
Saying-
old people spammers?
Yes, right.
Let's come up with a tool.
Well, I think it's. Oh, go ahead.
So as we got to know each other through texting, because I lived in Milwaukee, she lived in New Berlin, so
Yeah.
it's not like I was over there every day or whatever.
Yeah.
We saw each other, so we did a lot of texting, and I said that's how we fell in love. We fell in phone love.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Phone love.
Before we even had a first
Yeah.
date. That's
before
what
we
he
had
says.
our first date.
Well,
Phone
you,
dates.
you do
First
get to
date.
know each other through
Yeah.
that method,
Mm-hmm.
truly. And it's surprising because you wouldn't think that would be so, but it almost, correct me if I'm wrong, but it almost is easier to kind of go to the deep end of the pool through texting instead of looking at some stranger's eyes in the beginning. Like you can share a little bit more because it can be hard when you're just meeting somebody to stare across the table
I was
from
shy
them.
as could be whenever we'd be together.
Yeah.
But it's
I didn't think so.
You're right, Flo.
Yeah. you felt shy.
I felt
you
shy.
felt shy. You're
Yes,
like, I'm
yes.
gonna just
a lot of cheesing and
Yeah.
stuff like that going on.
Yeah.
But once you get to know somebody, you just get comfortable,
yeah.
and you know and then all of a sudden we don't need to text anymore.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and all that stuff. And
Well,
then-
convincing me to do the first and then the second date.
The
Say
what?
the
Because
what?
we had to convince me to do the first and
Yeah.
the
Oh,
second
that's
date.
right. Yeah.
And then it just kind of happened where the boys kind of
took over.
Yeah.
took over.
Yeah.
And honestly,
yeah.
it's so funny because from the second date on, we dated with my children, which is kind of weird. Some people think it's weird, but it was very natural for us.
Yeah, sure.
very
But
normal.
we still did things
Yeah.
separately.
Yeah.
But, for the most part, we were with the kids,
yeah.
so it'd be like if we went to a movie, it'd be the 4 of us would go to
Yeah.
a movie.
But
If we,
that's what life would look like if you were together
And I
having
think
those kids to
Right.
begin with,
that's
right?
why it was
grocery
so,
shopping,
Yeah,
all the
Yeah.
all the,
That's what it would
all the
look
regular
like.
stuff.
yeah,
We
and
were
then
doing-
it's funny because Paul owned a house and I lived in my apartment with my 2 boys, and I really wanted like stability and consistency, and he would come to my little apartment across the street from where I worked, and he would come and spend time there with me and my kids, and I know it was difficult, but I wanted them to be in their bed. I wanted them to be in their
I would
home.
be
right.
there. We would have dinner.
Yeah.
I would be there. We would tuck in, and then
Yeah.
I would hang out for a little bit, and then go home.
Yeah, but it was kind of cool the way it happened, the blending, you know, and is it always been easy? No. I mean, I look at it now. It's funny because when we were raising our children, I say that because we have 3 adult children. We
Yeah.
still do have 3 minors, but
Yeah.
when we were raising our kids, there were times where I would stand back and think, is this because like he's not their in quotes real dad? But and I would trust him though. I always trusted Paul. And looking back at it now, and so we have our 14-year-old son who is our biological child together.
Yeah.
You know, he's the same with our kids. He's consistent.
Yes.
And so
yes.
and I say
Sometimes
that,
she says I'm too soft.
Yeah, that's okay.
but when you're an older parent, it's different. I think the second time around is different altogether.
Yeah.
Yeah, what?
just
I'm
said
saying
that.
we're both
Yeah, I
older
know.
parents this time. Like I'm a different mom. You know, we have an
Yeah,
11-year-old.
no doubt.
Yeah.
I'm
No
in my
doubt.
40s. Paul's
Yes.
going to be 50 soon.
Yeah.
Like we have an 11-year-old. So
Yeah.
it's different now than when we raised our kids. But there are times where I would worry, or you know, I came from a situation where I had a really terrible stepfather. And Paul wasn't their stepdad; he was their dad because he adopted
Yes.
them.
Yeah.
Right.
But in my head, there's
It's
still
the stepdad.
yeah,
thing.
there was that still. Is this like a stepdad thing?
Yeah.
Is he being hard on him because he's not the real dad?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but Paul was never. It's not in his nature to be.
Yeah.
You know, like to be mean or he
Malicious.
was malicious. Yeah, that's
Yes,
the word.
right, right.
And I have one particular example that I always go back to. our oldest son was 17 years old, and his best friend, who was 18 years old, and they had been friends since they were 3 and 4 years old.
Yeah.
And I knew his friend TJ very well because obviously they were very little. They grew up together. And I always had a soft spot in my heart for TJ because he came from a really broken family. So I felt like our family kind of was some stability for him.
Right,
and he would
right.
come around and
Right.
I would embrace him and just love on him. And it got to a point where I remember Paul says, I don't want TJ in our home. And how could you do that? How could you say that about our son's best friend? He's bad news for our son, and he's gonna, Jeremiah is gonna, things are gonna happen, and it's not okay. And I fought with him. I argued with him because I was hurt because I felt
She
like
knew him as a child.
yeah, and
And
I
watched him
felt
grow up, so her feelings for him were a
I
lot
was
different
a little
than
bit
mine.
maternal.
Yeah.
I want to say
Yeah.
Right.
I didn't dislike him.
right.
Right.
He
It's
just
just the
path he was going
the
down.
path
Yep.
exactly.
yeah,
The
and
choices being made. You were
For sure.
witnessing
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
poor
Sure.
choices, and
There
you
was
were
flags
worried
for
about
me.
your son.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think I looked at it from the perspective of, like I said, being a mom, and even to TJ,
Yeah.
like I wanted to love on him. Well, why would we shun him if he's going on shouldn't we help him? You've tried that, Nilsa. We've all tried that. Now we have to think about our son. And we went back and forth, and I remember him looking at me, this is my son.
Wow.
And I will not have him in my home. And he's never talked to me that way. And he was
Yeah.
like so adamant. And I had no choice but to back off and okay.
Because he was being protective.
He was being protective. And I thought, is he just being mean? And to fast forward, our son and TJ grew apart because he didn't have that
Yeah.
contact with TJ.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
would still see each other. Obviously, our son turned 18, and he could have done with it what he wants. Our son's friend, he actually died very young of a drug overdose. And I think in hindsight, Paul saw something that I didn't.
Yes.
TJ was a wonderful young man that was broken, that came from broken. And I think he just was protective. And looking back, he saw things that I didn't. I didn't want to see that. I wanted to,
Yeah. Yeah.
You were
just,
hopeful.
yeah.
Yeah.
And Paul was like, he was worried about our son. And I look back at that, he did all the right things.
How quickly were you able to make that connection, to have that perspective? Did it take a while?
I would think we've had that conversation several times over the span
Yeah.
of a year or two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was a lot, I won't say a lot of back and forth, but it was just a lot of just listening.
Yeah.
And just
That's
see,
a big word, isn't it?
Yes,
Listening.
Okay, I'm gonna listen to you, but then I'm
Yeah.
gonna tell you what I think, and
Yeah.
I would hope that you listen to me as well.
Yes.
And when she just mentioned that he's never coming in, I was quite louder than that, obviously, and I think that's the first and only time I've ever had to raise my voice for something like that.
It
Yeah.
was weird
And,
because he's never been like that.
No.
He was so
So protective of
to his
your
core.
your
I
son.
think
Right.
I-
Our son, right?
Right. But
Yeah.
see, that's how you're viewing it.
But in my head, I'm
Right.
thinking, well, you're just being mean. But he was
Yep.
really, and that's he was trying to get across to me that he was thinking about his son.
That's right.
And-
What a
Well,
shift,
I
what a
was
shift
looking
for you.
Yeah.
She was looking from the past that he's a little
That's right.
Yeah.
a little guy, and then she saw him grow up and all this, and
Yeah.
I'm looking
Forward.
10 years ahead
Yeah.
Yeah.
and seeing where this could possibly lead, and that's not a path I wanted my son
No, I
to
imagine.
be down.
How-
And I'm sure
how
my
courageous.
son will probably tell me now that, oh yeah, we went, we kicked it, we had fun, we did
Yeah.
all this stuff, which is great. You did it, but you knew you had a different path. You had a different plan for yourself. And
I imagine
so-
the raising of your voice was actually rooted in fear. You were afraid for
Sure.
that's often where that comes from, right? Anger is actually fear.
I mean, the phone calls we got in the middle of the night, I'd rather it be, Dad, can you come pick me up? I can't
Yeah.
drive.
Yeah.
Or something happened to the car. Can you come save me? I don't want to get the phone call. Hey, your son's dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or in the
goodness.
hospital,
Yeah.
barely
Right.
alive.
Something.
Right.
Something bad. So
Or at the police
That's-
station, or anything.
It's so hard because you
Yeah.
want to protect your children, but once they
Oh,
hit a certain
gosh.
age, they have to learn how to do some of that for
Yeah.
themselves. They still need us, even at 23 and 25.
Oh, no doubt.
They still need us. you know,
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
And Jeremiah figured it out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And I remember him as an adult, and he would see TJ, and he's like, I just don't see him as much, Mom. We're just in different paths in our life. And I know that it hurt Jeremiah terribly when he passed. But I think Jeremiah knew that there was nothing that we could have,
Right.
But in hindsight, and I guess I share that story because that's like a huge example of how, it's not easy.
No.
Blended family or not blended family, whether you have your own kids.
Life is not easy.
Yes, and we have learned after raising our kids that were mine biologically that he adopted, right?
Yeah.
So all of his adopted kids, I should say, are all out of the house, so to say. It's still difficult with your, like, whether it's a blended family, when you have kids, there's challenges, there's things. And I think that I like to say that Paul and I work pretty well together.
Yeah.
With
I
the
can
kids.
tell.
We don't always see eye to eye, but it's the talking and
Let's
everything.
segue there then. Tell us, hi. You can pop your head in if you want to say hi.
Okay, I just want to grab my keys.
Oh, they're in the drawer. Third drawer.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sam's been on the podcast. We had a twofer with him, a back-to-back.
Ah,
Yes.
that's why the setup was here.
Talk so long that we had to do 2
hours.
episodes. Too close.
After my father.
Yeah.
It had nothing to say about it.
A lot of empty air. So you guys work well together. One of the things that we do and don't do well together is work well. So sometimes it works really
It's
well. and
actually
sometimes we
a
don't.
new realization. Sometimes we
Oh.
do work really well together, but there are some tasks that we're oil and water.
Really?
Yeah.
I got to give Kathy credit. She's the one that came and said, "Look, if we're going to do this real estate stuff and everything, I think when we get to this place, you've just got to take over."
Your role is this.
Your role is
My
this, and
role
my
is
role is
this.
that,
And
and-
if you want it to go and grow and expand, that's got to come from you. And I'll be there to help you and support you. But the partnership is just not.
Yeah,
What
and
I
without going down
see.
details, it was really cool that Kathy identified, "Hey, I want to do this with you. We just have to change roles."
It wasn't easy
And
to
so-
say because I was very concerned about disappointing him, and
Sure.
and I really thought that we would follow a path that we had discussed like that. But after being together for 2 years and working on the house and working on some business stuff, it became clear that we do great together on so many things, but not everything. And recognizing that and speaking to it, I didn't want to. I think I felt like that would be a failure in some way, but he was really receptive.
Well, and that's why I
it was a
bring it up
big
with you guys.
milestone.
It was a huge milestone for us because the business that we want to run is the real estate stuff and fixing up the house. When we're done here, we'll show you things that we've done and stuff like that. The challenge is I've been doing it for so long and have a way of doing it, and even just how you hold ladders, and that's fire department shit. That's kind of stuff that Kathy's going, why does it fucking matter, right? And my brain's going, because I'll be done faster, right?
Yeah.
And so for her to have the courage to say, "Hey, I want to still do this with you, only we got to shift roles,"
Yeah.
right? It was really huge. So let's segue back to you then, because it's just interesting. You said work well together, and I thought it was awesome that you said that. You know that, right?
Thank
That I
you.
love that you said, "I still want to work with you, but we have to modify when we get to these circumstances." One of the things you even said was, "You just got to take over. Like you got to say, what do you want me to do, and hand stuff out." And I always felt that was misogynistic, right? I'm going to do X and you're going to do Y. I
Right.
felt that was top-down boss employee thing. It works for her then, because that way,
Depending on what it is, right?
Right.
If it's not my
Anyway.
area of expertise, just tell me. I'm the greatest helper. Like for the wedding, I was like, "Where do you need me when?"
that's the
And
example
I'm-
she gave was for the wedding.
Yeah.
If you notice,
Yeah.
I said, "Where do you need me?" And I said to her, "I need you to do this, this, and this." And so it worked really well.
Yeah.
I feel that I'm being bossy, right? Because I'm trying to be collaborative, and
Well, sometimes you're bossy.
Well, that's because you don't
I
listen.
mean, at one point or another, we all seem kind of bossy in our own respective ways.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because Jack has his specialty, you have yours,
That's
I
right.
have mine,
Right.
Nilsa has hers.
Right.
right.
And so if I'm redoing my garage, she doesn't need to come out and tell me I missed a nail. I know I
Yeah.
did.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
This is my area.
Yep.
It's
I
his
don't-
area of expertise. I
it
know
is.
nothing about
Yeah,
that.
right. Let me run it.
So let me do what I got to do. If I fall off the ladder, then son of a bitch, I should have had somebody hold the ladder for me. I roll off the roof and I land on the ground and I can be hurt, but I can't complain because she's gonna be like, I told you so.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
talk about, one of the things that fascinated me also when I met with you the first time, in addition to the story you just told, so thank you, that was awesome. But was when I said, so how'd you guys get into business together? And I even asked you, if you recall, I said, I don't know if you recall, but I remember asking it, do you like working with one another? Like, how does that go?
We absolutely do.
It's so
And
weird.
so-
It's so weird because of the way we met and all the now I can, I don't know if it's the right words, but I say naysayers, the ones in the family, both sides that didn't agree with, because I was older and this relationship's never going to work.
Right,
and here we
right.
are 18 years later, suck
Yes,
it, people.
yeah, yeah.
And that's how I feel.
And you
it's
started a
like,
wedding planning business, right? So
Yeah.
how did you fall into that?
well,
Yeah, I mean, it's something that evolved over time. We both had normal, I should say, full-time jobs,
day jobs.
yeah, careers.
Yep.
And it's something that we did very part-time, just for fun, for family. It started out for family, and actually he started officiating for my cousin.
Right. We
Oh, I love that.
A family get together.
Yeah.
At her mom's house, and I was out in the backyard smoking cigars with everybody, and I needed a fresh drink, So I walked in the house, and Nilsa and her cousin and mom and some other people were sitting at the table, and they were talking about officiants. And I said, jokingly, I'm like, if you can't find one, I'll do it. Seriously, I walked by, went in the fridge, grabbed the beer, walked right out.
That was the end of the conversation.
Yeah.
There was no speak about
And,
it. Like,
and then, like, a week later,
They called you.
No, well, her cousin called Nilsa, and then I came home from work, and Nilsa's like, "You're not gonna believe it." I'm like, "What happened?"
like, look what you did.
Oh, what
You put your foot in your mouth because she really wants you to officiate her
put it
wedding
out
now.
there.
And so I'm like,
he's
okay, so
"Put it
what do
out
I
there."
do?
He's like, I don't even know what I would do. I'm like, well, I got to look into this because you.
Yeah.
And he's
Yeah.
like, I was totally joking, but I'll do it. He's like, I think that'd be awesome. So that's kind of how it started.
Yeah.
And every time he would do a wedding, there'd be somebody else that would say, hey, can you do mine?
So a lot of times it was word of mouth.
Yeah,
Just
and it was like
somebody was
it
at
kind of-
something, and yeah.
And so you started as an officiant.
Yeah,
then.
so
Yeah.
he started, just Paul.
Yeah,
So Paul kind of
okay.
started this. And I would go to these weddings that he was officiating, and I would help. I'd be the helper. And then the help started to evolve into a little bit more. And it was really funny.
From cake cutting.
Yeah. Cake cutting.
And it's so funny because, so I've always written all his scripts. That was like my thing. I wrote my cousin's script.
Amazing.
And it was
My
like,
wording would be way different. Probably nowhere near as
Do
fun.
you? All
Yeah.
right, you're married,
Yeah.
kiss, done.
I'm seriously, I can marry people in about
Cocktails.
35 seconds.
Yeah.
So it kind of evolved into something, and then I would have people like, oh, well, can you help with this and can you help with that? And eventually it led to the coordinating. And at the time I was a teacher, so I would have summers off. So with summers off, I had time to do weddings.
Yeah.
So I did
Did a few here and
I
there.
did like
Yeah.
maybe like 10 weddings a year just for fun, something to do. I had off in the summers as a teacher. And it kind of evolved into something. And in 2018 is when I left my teaching job. And I still had a part-time job. But it was like, okay, I'll do this wedding. So, and it really evolved into something much, much larger than I ever had imagined. And so it was actually quite unintentionally. We did
Right.
not. It's not like one day we
was
wrote a
very
business
organic.
plan. Yeah, we
Yeah.
didn't write a business plan and say, hey,
Yeah.
we're going to start this. But it's turned into this business. We have 14 people on staff now. And
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we did 64 weddings last year.
Incredible.
I think we have about 48 weddings this year.
Yeah.
That is
and-
one a week.
Wow.
It's
Quite busy.
yeah, and you have to think about it like wedding season is like summer months.
Compressed.
So
Oh,
it's
yeah.
Usually
there's
from-
so
Yeah.
sometimes there's like 2 or 3 weddings in a weekend.
Yeah.
Wow.
But
Wow.
it works out because we have a great staff. We have great people on staff. So our daughter-in-law a year and a half ago, she quit her full-time job in retail management and she works for us full-time. And Paul was kind of he would help me out when he could. and he worked for the
I was
fire.
still working. I was still
Yeah,
working
he worked for the
full time. So
the fire department, the Milwaukee Fire Department full time, and last year October he retired from the fire department. So we are
Amazing.
in it full, and it's been great. I know that we're an anomaly. I know that we're not the norm. We do spend a lot of time together. We do enjoy spending a lot of time together.
Yeah.
It's funny because yesterday, so we have this family vacation we're going on next
Yep.
week. Yesterday I was doing lots of running around,
Yeah.
and I had the daughters, and I was with the daughter-in-law. We were kind of just doing the running around of the things that you do before vacation, right? And then in the evening he went to a concert with some friends, and at the end of the evening he's like, I really missed you today. I'm like, it was like 5 hours we were apart, but we're together all the time.
Yeah.
I'm on the way home, and I go, coffee.
Yeah, he texted me coffee.
It's like
So
11
we're-
o'clock at night, and I'm like, I need coffee.
We went home. He came home and we had coffee together, and we kind of sat and just decompressed a little bit, and then we went up to bed.
Yeah.
But that's like we enjoy spending our time together. I know it's not the norm.
Yeah.
For everybody, but it works for us. We work really well together. I think one of the biggest things is that the things that I'm good at, Paul isn't, and the things that he is, I'm not.
Exactly.
Like,
See?
Yeah.
So
The fortes.
yeah, we have
Yeah.
we balance each other out. Like I am not good at putting things together or making things. Paul's good, and he's not tech savvy.
Yes.
I'm not really tech savvy, but I can do the things that
Yeah.
he can't do, and he can do the things. So we complement each other well when it comes to that,
Love
and it works for us. I mean, we just.
And then we go to the weddings and we knock them out.
Yeah, I mean, we have a routine. We know what we do. We've figured it out. We have a rhythm, and we don't always work together. Sometimes
And all the weddings, right?
Yeah, sometimes he'll staff another wedding with another person, and I'll have a different helper. But we like to work together, so if we can, we try.
I bet.
But
That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, and on top of, like I said, we do wedding coordinating, which is what we did for Alex and Sam, but I do full service wedding planning.
Sure.
And that is really involved.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have some brides that I've worked with right now, like over a year. I've been working with them.
I
But
bet.
yeah, I mean, it works well for us, and it's been a really good adventure. And it's been fun to have the kids get involved. It's so funny now that the kids are on summer break, like, can I help? And so I have our 16-year-old has been doing flowers and different things and
I
decorations.
love
It's
it.
just been fun. It's
I
just
love
been
it.
Our oldest daughter, the junior college now,
Yeah.
she's more tech savvy, so she helps out with some of that
yeah,
stuff.
she does
as
a
well.
lot of like tech stuff
So-
for me, which is really cool to just have everybody kind of involved and everybody, just the support from our family. It's been super, super cool.
That's
And like I said, the
incredible.
fact that our daughter-in-law, she's
He
working
has a
for.
full-time job.
Yeah. So, and it works because she's got 3 littles at home. And so we, obviously the nature of our business is weekends.
What is the
Yeah.
name of the company?
Yeah.
Tremaine Weddings and Events.
Tremaine Weddings and Events. Okay, so
Yeah.
we'll make sure we post that.
Yeah.
I will tell you the thing that impressed me the most was, I've been in business running my own shop for years, and you and I had a offline conversation about some dynamics, right? And who's the client and who's the customer and all
Yep.
that kind of stuff. What I was blown away by you guys was just your ability to realize that your role is to just make everything seem smoother, which means you have to listen super well.
Yep.
And it's really not about your opinion at that moment, right? Or whether or not you think the bride or groom or father of the bride is over the top. It's they're having a reaction. And so that's what I thought was so impressive about you guys, not only in prepping to meet you, right, and talking, but I asked you guys, can you come and just take a look at the venue? Right, and that's all me and Alex
Yeah.
going. We want to make sure that you see it. I know you said you'd been there before, but we wanted you to be there with our eyes.
I think you have been there, but I
Yeah,
wasn't.
we done one.
Yeah.
So it was good for me
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
kind of get the lay of the
And,
land.
and the
Yeah,
key
no
thing
doubt.
is, we
I
really wanted
imagine.
to be there with our eyes, how
Yep.
we were seeing everything, right? So the venue could look a certain way, but we're visualizing it, and we did. That's the first time at that venue that everything was moved around, right? Because we saw the land, and we're going to move things that work well for us, right? Because we could. And the fact that you guys were there to absorb that was awesome. My favorite part of the whole event, believe it or not, was tore my pants. And you sewed this left seam of my pant while we were sitting there waiting to go into
You
the
were
reception.
truly prepared for everything.
It was hilarious. Or the second
I'm
thing is,
sure they could
and
tell
so that was
stories.
that to me was my favorite part because here I am with torn pants and I have to go, give a speech. But then leads me to my next thing. I had come up with this speech. I've been trying to figure out what to say. Obviously, you heard my speech.
Yeah.
And so for you guys to go out and get a Ted Lasso hat and to make a mustache, what you did was I could have pulled it off without it, right?
Yeah.
Could
Sure.
have done all those things, could
Mm-hmm.
have painted on something if I wanted to. The fact that you heard it last second and said, we're going to do whatever we can. So for any bride or groom or parents of brides or of the 7 people that listen to this, you guys were just amazing human beings. And so I think that's why you have success at what you do, because it's such a stressful moment or potentially stressful moment. And especially when you're dealing with 2 intense people like me and my daughter, who have very specific ideas of what we want, have an execution of how we want those things to roll out, right? Even though day of, Alex was happy as shit.
She was amazing.
Oh,
And
sure.
all she really wanted was someone to was to cut the cake. She really just
So
wanted someone
she
to cut
thought.
the cake.
Well, she got the bonus plan.
Yeah, she got
But
the
what
bonus.
you
We
guys-
did cut the cake.
Well, and then again, another hilarious part for me is the end of the night. I'm like, what are all these freaking hamburgers doing here?
Oh yeah.
Right? And you ran out to
I had to run to
Culver's, I think it was.
Culver's and
Yeah,
got
I didn't even
a lot
know
of
it was
burgers.
part of the deal, which was
Yeah.
still cool.
That's
Yeah.
incredible.
I
That's
just-
incredible.
And the
was-
funny thing was, it all went.
Yeah.
Did it all
Like,
go?
Yeah.
Well, there was maybe a little bit of fries and some
Come
cheese curds
on.
left, but all the burgers,
100
everything
burgers.
went.
No.
Incredible.
Like seriously, within an hour, it was gone.
Yep.
Wow.
You guys are amazing, and that's why I wanted
Thank
you
you
on the
so
podcast.
much.
And we hope to have you back again on the podcast.
Absolutely.
So,
You're very nurturing souls, both
thank
of
you.
you.
Yeah,
Very
you-
kind
you
people.
help-
And I
you-
think in that industry, you have to have that because it can be chaos all around you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a blessed event that it's really great character.
I
trait.
can't do enough. I still have to write the review, and I promise you I'll
Oh,
do
it's
that.
fine.
That's one of those things like, oh my God, I forgot to do
I'll
that.
remind you.
You are the nicest people, and I truly hope
Yes.
this is the beginning of a long friendship with you guys.
Thank you
'cause
for
I'm
sharing
so
your
impressed
story
with you.
with us, you
Awesome.
guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, your story was
I
great.
have one little more thing about the
Please
Yeah.
do.
whole being away from each other.
Yeah. Do
I don't know
share.
if she knows where I'm going with this.
I don't know.
Dun, dun, dun.
Her former job, she would have to go out of town
Yeah.
A lot. Yeah.
a lot. So sometimes she'd be gone for 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, 10 days.
This was a part-time job, and I would
and
have to
so-
go out of state all the time.
And,
wow.
and so I started this several years ago. Whenever she would be gone from me, I would write her cards. I would buy cards, write something in them. I'm like
Seriously.
today, day 2. Good morning, sweetheart. I love you.
Literally,
and
I
then-
have a card
and
for each
6
day that I'm
no,
gone.
I'm like 4 more days till I get to see you. Stuff like the really mushy stuff,
He's pretty
Yeah,
smushy.
that's
Can you
so
tell?
sweet.
And so I would do
I
it, but
love
I would.
that.
I knew I'd be carrying her bag out to the car, so I'd always open it and stuff it in the bottom real quick. And then one time, she left out of town, and I didn't get a chance to do it. And she goes, "I don't have any cards."
You didn't give him my card. Well, he said he had my card. He
I
had mentioned
had
to
them,
me,
but
like,
I
I have my
didn't-
cards. And then, so I said, I don't have my cards. And he'd forgot. And I'm like, it's fine. But he had mentioned it to me, so I felt really bad
Yeah.
that he didn't have them.
So-
that I didn't
And
get
you-
them from
and
him.
you missed them
and-
too.
and
I'm
so-
sure there's a
and-
part
and
of
so
you. Yeah.
she was in Iowa,
Yeah.
and so what happens? 7 o'clock. I got to be at work the next morning. I get my cards about 8 o'clock at night, and sure enough, I drove 5
did
hours.
All night. He drove there.
I drove 5 hours to go drop off these cards. She pulls up in the parking lot, and
Oh
she did
my
not know I was
gosh.
there. And she's outside by
He
herself.
really
and
loves her.
I seriously scared the bejesus out of her.
So I'm sitting in my car, and he came up to my window. But again, I'm in another state by myself, and I'm uncomfortable already as it is because I'm by myself.
Yeah.
And he pops up, and I'm like, ah, yeah. But anyway, yeah.
Shut up.
He's very sweet. Paul is very sweet.
Paul.
Kathy
That's
had a
amazing.
sale when we first started dating, a real estate sale, right? Wasn't that it? You closed some big deal, like your cousin's property, that big farm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I was talking to her, and I like to surprise her quite a bit. So this is when I was in Chicago and she was here, so we were doing a long distance thing, if you want to call it long distance. Remember that? And you started screaming because I'm talking to her on the phone. What are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm running to a store, and we're talking the whole drive basically. So at least an hour, I'm talking to her on the phone.
Little did I know he was driving up
And I
to
said,
me.
will you just do me a favor? Can you just come out of your room for a second? And you're like, what? I'm like, she had a condo at the time. I'm I just looked down the hallway, and she opened the door, and I was there with flowers. But I didn't drive 5 hours, you ass.
But I think it's
God.
those little things in a
It
relationship,
is
whether it's
little
1 hour or
things.
5 hours.
It really is.
Whether it's whatever it looks like.
It's
I think
right.
that's the thing is, and you know, like I said, we've been married for a long. That was maybe 2 years ago. That wasn't even that long ago.
Yeah, that wasn't that long ago.
But isn't
So-
that the lesson to always try to keep it fresh and show the
Yeah,
person
he's
you
really
love
good at that.
them?
I feel like I'm not so good at that.
Yeah.
I don't think
but-
I'm as good as that either. I do believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I say I love you, thank you, you're amazing, you're, you know, like
The words of
sincerely.
affirmation.
all the
Yes.
reassuring stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that enough? An occasional card.
I might start dating
But
Paul.
what were you going to say? He's not available.
I'm the same. I'm not as good at it as he is. You know, sometimes I'm like, oh, happy Father's Day. I'll make dinner tonight like I do every night. What do you want? I feel bad because he's like, he buys flowers. And sometimes I'm like, I'm so busy, I'm sorry. And I have to take the time to do that. But it's not a tit for tat.
It
Yeah.
should never
It's
be
never
that.
like we
Right.
don't compare, and he does things that I do things he doesn't do. Like we go back and forth, and I think we really balance each other out. Like it works for us.
Clearly.
You know, it's not perfect,
Yeah.
but like I said, we are perfectly imperfect for
Yes.
each
Guys
other.
are amazing.
And you're working on it together.
Yeah.
And when is
always.
Punta Cana again?
We leave Tuesday.
Next week.
Yeah.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
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 6
Awesome.
days. Yeah. So it's
Well,
coming up.
thank you. So
Yeah.
we always end the podcast with a question.
Okay.
Do you have your phone with you, Pumpkin? Is it nearby?
I think so.
Okay. So when we first started dating, we used this mobile app. I forget the name of it now. What was the first app called that we used to use? Remember the name of it? Paired. There's an app called Paired, and it's
Yes.
designed to help people at any stage of a relationship ask questions about one another. So
Okay.
lighthearted topics to real deep into the pool topics. And so
Sure.
we would end every podcast with a question.
Oh.
Which is a way for us to show people how we're trying to get to know one another. Well, what's interesting is we stopped it. We had one episode where we stopped it, and people wrote in or called us.
The
and
7
said-
listeners.
Yes.
Listeners, yeah. But really, we probably had, I don't know, probably
There was a
5 or
flood
6.
of 2 people.
We're like, why are they really want this? So we went
Yeah.
back to doing it.
That's so cool.
And then is that the Gottmans?
Yeah.
And so then we also follow this relationship couple called the Gottmans.
Gottman.
If you really should look them up, they're amazing. They've been together 35, 40 years as a couple, both PhD psychologists in relationships, and they can tell within 30 minutes, they said, if a couple is going to make it or not by the way they watch them fight.
Wow.
Because they can see, and fighting doesn't mean like going at it. It could just
Yeah.
be any disagreement.
Right, a disagreement.
And it's really, are you showing up for the other person? Are you listening,
Yep,
right?
fight
and showing
fair.
up?
We talk about that all the time. Fighting
It's really
fair.
cool.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, they have a mobile app now that does the same thing. Asks a bunch of questions.
Cool.
So we're going to ask you a couple questions.
Okay.
Do you have one for them?
No, not yet.
Okay.
No, we probably should have found one ahead of time.
No,
do you want to ask that topic? That'd be hilarious.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
It was sex questions. No, where's the question?
What about the great listening one?
No, open-ended. Those are categories of
Oh,
like
okay.
tasks.
See,
gotta
you
do.
know better.
Yeah. Okay. This is one. You have to answer individually. So now
Oh, okay. All right.
Do I have to leave the room and like
No.
come back
No,
like,
yeah.
like, like on a game show?
Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
The top answer is on the board.
Right. Which one do you like the best? Do you like this one?
Yeah.
I like her the best.
Oh, that's sweet.
That
Oh,
you do.
knock it off.
Sorry guys, I'm just
God,
a
I
little
think
mush.
I'm a
I'm a
sap.
little sappy.
You want to know what's funny? You drive 5 hours. You want to know what I do to Kathleen on occasion? I used to do this a lot. I would
What?
hide stuff on her side of the bed. So when she got into bed at night, there'd be a laptop, a shoe,
Oh, just
right?
to make you think of them.
Like a butter knife.
Meanwhile, he's laying there just watching.
I'm waiting for her to turn back the cover. So that's the stuff that I would do.
Well, we just went camping this last weekend, and she had an event on Sunday, so she came home on Saturday.
Came home a day early.
And so I stayed up camping to tear down stuff the next morning with the kids, and she came home and I had a shirt
I slept in his shirt. That's what
She
Yeah.
grabbed my shirt
I
and she
told him,
slept
I
in
slept
it.
in your shirt last night because I was missing him.
See? See?
So
Man, you guys set the bar so freaking high.
Get with it, man. Listen up, people.
it's so funny.
Did you find one?
They're going to be so happy for all these. I'm trying to find something that just challenges them.
That's a good one. I like this one
This one?
actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay.
How have you changed in the last year?
Oh, this is a good one. Can I go first, or do you want to go first?
No, absolutely. You do it because
I think.
I'm just going to say you copied me.
So this has been a transition year because Paul retired,
Yeah.
and we're full-fledged into our business. So how have I changed? I've always trusted my husband, but I think that this, like, jumping full into our business, I've had to, like, really trust him. And I think I've
A whole nother level.
A whole nother level. And I think that
Yeah.
he's let me kind of just do what I need to do. But I think that I've trusted him more.
Yeah.
I don't know even if that's possible, but really, like,
Wow.
just like, I don't know.
You were surprised. You were
Yeah, like,
surprised
this is-
that
we got this, like-
yeah.
We can do this, yeah.
Yeah. That's cool.
You
And-
in the last year.
And for me, obviously, I tell people all the time that now that I'm not working, I'm busier. Well, I'm
Yeah,
working.
right?
I'm working in a different
Yeah,
aspect,
yeah.
but I'm busier now than I've ever been.
Yeah.
And so when we have weddings coming up, she says, I need this, this, and this. So it's on me to be on task where
Yeah.
in years past I haven't been. So I'm really trying to work on that.
Yeah.
And so
Wow.
in the last year, I've really had to step up my game.
Yeah.
He's done really well, though.
Because I know she's entrusting me to do it because
Yeah.
we have
Someone
sometimes
counting
two,
on you.
2 and 3 weddings going on in a weekend.
Yeah.
I can't keep it straight what I got to do for which one.
Yeah.
I just know I have to do this, that, and the other
Yeah.
Yeah.
and to get it done and to have everything set up
Yeah.
so that we can get it there and get it
Again,
get it
Yeah.
the
going.
trust thing that I
It's-
tell him, like,
yeah.
this is
Yeah.
what we have to
and,
do.
and so
And he does that, and
Right.
it works really
so
well.
I think for me the biggest change is motivation.
Wow.
Because
Okay.
getting up 6 o'clock a.m. because I got to be at work at 7.
Yeah.
That's every day.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know, and you get out at 3 o'clock or 3:30, whatever it is. You come home and you have dinner and you hang out. You do your stuff. If there's stuff she needs me to do, I do it.
Yeah.
You know, but now it's like, okay,
This is our
my
livelihood.
workload,
This is
Yeah.
my workload has changed in
course.
the last year,
It's every day.
obviously. And it's not like that every week. It's not like that every month.
Yeah.
You know, it's sometimes. Excuse me. Sometimes we have huge weddings.
Yep.
And we need a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, we got to make sure we have X amount of this, that, and all the, all the way down to the littlest tidbit.
Yeah.
And
That's cool.
it's like,
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
neat.
So motivation and getting things done in a timely manner.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that, it's so funny. So we were talking about camping this weekend, and I came home early to do an event on Sunday. So normally, again, I don't do these things on my own. He's my right-hand man,
Yeah,
so to say.
yeah.
And so as I'm doing these things on Sunday, I'm like, oh my gosh, Paul, I miss Paul. He does all this stuff for me, like all the things.
Yes,
and
of course.
I tried to help with some of the prep stuff,
He
but
did
loading
so
the vehicle
much.
and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
He did
is-
so much, but even still, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much to do. And
Yeah.
he's just, he does it and he doesn't complain, and he's like, it'll be done. Yep.
Yeah.
And that's another. Thank you for saying that actually, because I've been really trying hard not to complain about stuff. In my mind, that's a different thing.
Yeah, right?
I
Storytellers, right?
am
Your
all
storytellers.
over myself in my mind, but
Yeah.
outwardly, I'm like, okay, it's got to get done. It doesn't matter how I feel about it.
That's
right.
It doesn't
Yeah.
matter if it's going to take me all day
Yeah.
and I got to miss out on something that I wanted to do.
Yep.
I need to get this done
Right.
because we need to get it done.
Yeah.
You're gonna
Right.
laugh when all this mulch you see around here.
Yeah.
Huge. It was 8 yards of mulch that we
Oh,
got.
sure.
Okay. And so I kept telling myself, because there's moments where I'm like, I'm doing all the shuffling, right? I'm getting frustrated, right? My brain's telling all this stuff, and I went one shovel at a time in the wheelbarrow. One shovel at a time.
Yep.
Dump it, and it'll all be done, right? In fact, it was funny when this was all finished. I looked at Kathy and went, "Can I cut myself off from the lawn now? Are we done, like, with my stuff? Because I'm tired." But
And I said,
it's that-
no,
like,
get
no,
back
get
out
to
there.
Sure.
no, but I get it. Like your
Yeah.
mind can create all these stories and become Ernest Hemingway when it's just not real, right?
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
So you guys rock. So here's how we
Thank
also
you.
end. Look at the camera and just say peace.
Peace.
Peace. Are you us too,
oh.
right?
Oh,
Peace. All right.
That was fantastic. Jack and Kathy Shit Show outro take
You should start off
652.
laughing. You just listened to another episode of the Jack and Kathy Shit Show.
Our senior producers are me.
Hey, and me,
This episode was produced, engineered, and mixed by
the amazing Key Honar.
Email your questions, comments, or interesting relationship stories to jackandkathyshitshow@gmail.com. That is Kathy with a C.
Be sure to follow and like our marvelous shit show on Instagram and TikTok at Jack and Kathy Shit Show. Apparently, liking and following is a thing.
It is.
Yeah.
This episode was produced by Pint Productions 2022. Point!